Female leadership. For a female leader to be successful, what is the most important quality they need? Through my research, I have found that vulnerability is the most important quality a female leader needs to ensure the greatest amount of success. So what makes a good leader? In Franklin D. Roosevelt's first inaugural address, he explained what it meant to be a good leader. This included sacrificing yourself for others, having dedication towards the people and the purpose you're leading, and finally, selflessness. He continued by saying you need to have self-discipline because when being a leader, there are obligations you need to fulfill, and sometimes the only person who can see those out is the leader themselves. And finally, you need to have endurance. Having endurance ensures that the promises you make are seen through to the end, which allows a mutual trust between a leader and the person being led. What has female leadership looked like throughout the years? According to Rebecca Leppert, a copy editor at Pew Research Center, she found that within Congress as of 2023, 28% were female. Similarly, Joanna Topa, a psychologist teaching at the University of Maya, found that the percent of legally residing women between 2016 and 2023 was 48.5%. These are the highest percentages it's been throughout history, but as you can see, it's still not 50-50. So through my research, I felt that it was because women are being taught to lead like men, but we need to be taught how to lead like women. And one key difference between that is vulnerability, showing vulnerability. So what do people say when they say vulnerability? Bernie Brown, a professor at the University of Houston, spent 2 decades studying courage, shame, vulnerability, and empathy. Through her research, she found that the basic definition of vulnerability was the need for connection. This need for connection allowed people to have the strength to show their flaws and accept their insecurities for part of themselves and how they lead. This allowed innovation to take form and people to have a new perspective on ideas and leading. This can turn into motivation, and more specifically, mission-driven leadership. What is mission-driven leadership and why is it so important? Mission-driven leadership, according to Mary Dana Hinton, a president of Hollins University and president of St. Benedict's College, said that it was sculpting a path and having a shift in perspective. Being a female leader allows somebody to take a path that nobody's taken before, and this can allow real change because the problems that haven't been solved because they're being approached at in the same way are being taken in a new perspective, and new ideas are forming from this. There are negative effects to showing vulnerability and having mission-driven leadership, however, because it can be perceived incorrectly. Showing mission-driven leadership can be seen as crazy instead of innovative, or showing vulnerability when leading can be seen as a weakness instead of a chance for connection, and people can take advantage of that if a leader isn't careful about who she trusts and who she allows to have an impression on her. Overall, however, Emma Fulu, a women's activist who got her doctorate from the University of Melbourne and is the CEO of a feminist agency, found that these created opportunities, and from these ideas and from this connection, these opportunities allowed a more harmonious work environment. So why is vulnerability a key characteristic for female leaders? Bernie Brown's study, she found that vulnerability is the birthplace of imagination to see potential. When this imagination is taken into action, it turns to transformation. This transformation over time turns into change. This chain reaction allows new opportunities to encourage, inspire, and have a positive effect on others. Some people, however, say courage is more important than vulnerability, but why is vulnerability more important than courage? Colleen Gibson, an award-winning writer and speaker, believes that courage is more important than vulnerability because courage allows people to apply trial and error, to push through adversity, and to face their fears. But courage is important because when doing this, failure is necessary to succeed because being comfortable with failure allows people to push through and continue their work and not be afraid of what comes next, but just being able to push through. However, Marcus Thompson, an author for the Pro Sports of Atlantic, found that courage is directly related to vulnerability. In order for a person to show courage, they have to be vulnerable. And the same goes the other way around. vulnerability requires courage in some aspect. So, in conclusion, vulnerability is the most important characteristic a female leader can have because it allows a connection between a leader and the person being led, which creates motivation within the workplace because people are sharing their ideas and new action is taken. And through this, mission-driven leadership is formed and real change can occur because the leaders are able to just take a new perspective and they're able to change how people look at them and how people see leaders and who they are and what they can do for people around them. By showing mission-driven leadership, these opportunities can imply a real change in the world, and I believe that it will change for the better and it will help everybody create a positive effect in our environment. And
very good, Addie. So my question for you is, the first question, what evidence did you gather that you didn't include in this presentation, and why did you choose not to include it?
So I had a source, Begiquio Nadal, something like that, and he focused on the foreigners and the more specifically like the immigrants that come into America and how they have been affected from this leadership, how they've shown leadership. But I felt like that was a little bit too specific for my presentation, and mine was more focused on how women all around the world, how women overall can show that that leadership and how they can change and how they can be successful.
Okay, good. What additional questions emerged from your research? Why are these questions important?
One question that really kind of emerged from mine that I wasn't able to put in was, what can we do about it? How can we start implementing this in schools and just teaching these girls how to grow up to be successful leaders, to be strong, independent women? And that's mainly because in Mary Dana Hinton's, she kind of just talked about that drive and how that drive can have such a big effect. So by teaching these girls how vulnerability and mission-driven leadership can have such a big effect, I think that would definitely, I just wanted to figure out how we can apply that a little bit more in schools.